Excellent. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Affordable Housing Growth and Development Trust Fund Board meeting. It's Friday, October 4th, 9 a.m. or a little thereafter. I'm Assistant Town Manager Andy Clyburn. I'm going to chair today's meeting in the absence of Town Manager Els. Real-time access to the Affordable Housing and Growth Development Trust Board is available using the Zoom link and telephone number and meeting ID that were properly posted. I do need to make note that in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, the chair must inquire whether anyone is taping this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. Seeing none, I will call this meeting to order with a roll call. Laura Schupel,
Present.
Mark Mill,
Present.
Andy Clyburn present. We have a quorum. With that, I'll jump into public comment. Are there any members of the public with us today that would like to make comment? Excellent. Seeing none, we will jump right into our guest speaker. We're honored to have Senator Julian Cyr with us today for updates from the State House. Sir.
Good morning, Andy, and Mark and Laura, members of the trust, and everyone else who's joining us this morning. Just to be clear, Andy, it would be helpful to get some parameters on what you want me to talk about specifically related to housing and how long you want me to talk. We have a lot of things we've done around housing, which is the top issue facing Cape Codders and Islanders. Is my top priority. But I just want to get a sense of what would be helpful for the trust this morning, because we've been doing a lot.
Certainly. Well, I think any most recent updates that have come out, Senator, the floor is yours. I do know that we're down to 3 quorum today, and Mark may have to leave us early. So if we could dedicate maybe 10 or 15 minutes,
Great.
That would be
Okay.
fantastic.
Perfect. I'll go through. I'll provide a relatively brief update, and then we can get into questions from the trust. So we've been working on housing, for quite some time to build momentum on this issue, and really, I think thanks to Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll, who really I think have identified that, the greatest challenge I think we're facing across the state, and this is Cape Cod is no stranger to this issue, is housing. Right? We broadly have not built enough housing to keep up with the demand here. And you really see, if you look across Massachusetts, right, what is happening demographically. It's people who are 25 to 44 who are leaving the state, people who look like me, right, millennials, Gen Z, who are leaving the state. These are folks who make middle income folks, people, young families. So we largely think they're leaving the state because they can't afford housing. Childcare costs and others are a factor as well. And anecdotally, I would say this is what the millennials are talking about, right? And so Governor Healy and Lieutenant Governor Driscoll really put on the table that we need to start to take significant action on housing. And the legislature, I think, has responded, and we've done a big first step there. Though I want to be clear, this is just the start, and we have a lot more to do. Massachusetts has to build 200,000 housing units by the end of this decade. So that is quite a hefty level. So what was filed with the governor and then passed by both chambers and signed into law this summer is the Affordable Homes Act. It's a $5.1 billion authorization to invest in housing across Massachusetts. There are 50 unique initiatives to address rising costs due to high demand and limited supply. These include accessory dwelling units by right that are subject to reasonable restrictions. There's conversion of vacant commercial space to housing. This is more so a priority, I think, in our downtown, more of our cities or downtowns. There's promotion of green housing development. The most substantive and I think important piece for our conversation today is the establishment of what's called a seasonal communities designation. And so this is something that I have worked with the administration, with municipal leaders, with housing advocates to germinate for a number of years. And this was included in the Affordable Homes Act, and it's a pretty big deal for Cape Codders, and I think it's going to have relevance for Barnstable. So the seasonal communities designation essentially says that communities that have fluctuating populations and seasonal housing demands need a unique toolkit to be able to access a toolkit around housing policy that they can access. To be designated as a seasonal community, you have to have high rates of short-term rentals. There has to be a significant population increase in seasonal visitors. There has to be a disparity between the AMI that currently is within the town and what is the income required to purchase the median home price of a home in the municipality, and a certain percentage of the housing stock not being used as a primary residence. So if you're a community where you have several or all these factors, then you will receive the seasonal communities designation. All towns in Dukes County, which is Martha's Vineyard, and then Nantucket are automatically designated as seasonal communities, as are towns in Barnstable County that have 35% or greater of housing stock that's not being used as a primary residence. This is basically Dennis out on the Outer and Lower Cape. Barnstable, I think, is just around 30%. I don't have that figure specific. But essentially, the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, HLC, is going to be basically promulgating regulations and putting out guidance around how a community like Barnstable can join the seasonal communities designation. It's my understanding, and this has been designed to benefit a town like Barnstable once the program is up and running. So if you are designated a seasonal community, this is going to allow your town to access policies, to implement policies that are designed to both preserve and develop year-round housing that is above and beyond affordable housing. So the reality that we're grappling with across the region is not just having to subsidize housing for people below area median income, right? Traditionally affordable housing, but that given our housing market here, we're going to have to come up with a way to subsidize housing, particularly in the extremities of the region. This is the conversation on Nantucket. This is the conversation in Provincetown and Martha's Vineyard. This is the conversation increasingly that's coming to the Lower Cape and the Mid Cape. How do you subsidize housing for most all year-round working people who don't yet own a home or going to stand to inherit a home? So with the seasonal communities designation, a municipality can establish a year-round housing trust fund without having to go through the home rule process. So several communities in the region have already established a year-round housing trust fund. A year-round housing trust essentially allows the municipality to have a fiscal vehicle to subsidize year-round housing. Then towns are able to implement a year-round deed restriction, so the ability to essentially create a middle market for year-round housing. So much of the value of real estate here on Cape Cod is based on the value of the land itself because it's so scarce, and then two, properties are valued on what they rent by the night in July and August, not what a year-round person can afford in a mortgage or in rent year-round. So year-round deed restrictions, we think, are another very useful tool when you look at places like Aspen and Vail, Colorado, in the Rocky Mountains, or Truckee, California, around Lake Tahoe. They have been implementing, effectively this year-round deed restriction program that's, in their case, funded through a transfer fee on real estate transactions, and it's been quite successful in those areas. They subsidize housing. About a third of the housing stock now in Vail is through the Vail and Deed program. Seasonal communities are also going to be allowed to provide housing to subsidize housing for municipal workers. This is increasingly a refrain and a concern that we hear from our towns. In Edgartown on Martha's Vineyard, they're having a real hard time recruiting and retaining sewer workers, right? We needed to make a change in state law that enabled municipalities to provide that subsidy for municipal workers. If you're a seasonal community, you're going to be able to do that. Seasonal communities are also able to increase the residential property tax exemption. The current cap of that is at 35%. Seasonal communities can go to a 50% on the residential property tax exemption. Seasonal communities also are going to be asked to make some modest zoning changes. Seasonal communities will be asked to adopt bylaws to permit the construction of tiny homes, to permit the use of undersized or merger lots, so long as tiny homes and or any merged or undersized lots that are in use, they have to be used for year-round housing. So we're really trying to incentivize year-round housing and not allowing development through these mechanisms, through these new zoning mechanisms that aren't dedicated for year-round housing. In addition, the office, under the Affordable Homes Act, we established an Office of Livable Communities and Community Services. This is a new office to provide technical support to both rural communities and seasonal communities for housing solutions. Barnstable is a pretty robust, well-run town, but a lot of the seasonal communities, right, have a modest, they have modest staff, right? They maybe have a part-time planner. Um, they don't have a housing coordinator. This is really meant to bring in resources. Certainly would benefit Barnstable, probably designed for places like, Aquina and Wellfleet as well, who need assistance. And then there is a seasonal communities advisory council that's established to advise HLC on on the needs of seasonal communities, to figure out what other tools seasonal communities may need to further year-round housing. So what's next? My expectation is that HLC will put out draft regulations and initial guidance in early winter. I think we're expecting this sometime in December. Then there'll be a regulatory process and listening sessions that will follow. They'll convene the Seasonal Communities Council. We'll begin to pull together feedback, thoughts, ideas. And then we'll begin to see HLC providing technical assistance to seasonal communities. There is much, much more to do here. I want to both acknowledge and brag a bit about how significant seasonal communities is for our region, and the fact that this was in the final bill. There was a lot, as folks know, that didn't get done before the end of formal sessions, and a number of pieces that fell out of the Affordable Homes Act. Seasonal communities did not. This was something that our delegation worked persistently in a bipartisan Senate and House manner, collaboratively, to get this done and to sustain this in the bill. This is probably the biggest thing we've been able to deliver for Cape Codders and Islanders since the establishment of the Cape Cod and Islands Water Protection Fund. The Cape Cod and Islands Water Protection Fund has been a game changer around financing sewer. To date, $204 million in other people's money have been generated to subsidize sewer projects in 8 towns across the Cape, including quite a bit of that going to Barnstable. Sewer, of course, helps us steward our fragile environment. It also allows us to build more densely in our existing villages, so we can have the year-round housing we need. So sewer has been a big part of this. Now with the Affordable Homes Act and the Seasonal Communities Designation, a very, very significant start around addressing year-round housing here on the Cape and Islands. But there is much, much more that we need to do. I'm very clear-eyed that we're going to need to come back to advance further policies. Spending a lot of time thinking about how do we pay for this, right? We have such a dysfunctional real estate market in many respects, right? Or a real estate market that's really geared towards luxury investment or second, third homes. So that coming up with the dollars to purchase year-round deed restrictions, to provide, to subsidize year-round housing, subsidize housing for municipal workers, this isn't going to come cheap. I'm a very big fan of, and many of the towns in the Cape and Islands District are clamoring for a local option real estate transfer fee to provide a revenue source, a stable and significant revenue source to subsidize year-round housing. 12 of the 19 towns in the Cape and Islands District have passed this home rule. I'd be delighted if Barnstable really take a look here. When you look at the astronomical cost of addressing our housing crisis, a real estate transfer fee really provides really merits a close look, and would really provide significant revenue for the work that we have to do. And then more broadly, I think we just are seeing this housing conversation continue across the state. The governor, the lieutenant governor have really said that this is the Affordable Homes Act is sort of a down payment, a first step. We know that we need to come back on these issues and do more. So stay tuned. So I'm very much all ears for what other tools Barnstable may need to address year-round housing.
Great. Thank you very much, Senator.
Of course.
Very comprehensive overview of what's going on. There's a lot to unpack there, clearly. You answered my biggest question, which was the implementation timeline. What about representation? How do we make sure, as this group is putting together the regulations, that we have representation?
So there's 2 ways to do that. One, the Seasonal Communities Advisory Council has a number of seats that are spelled out. The Mass Municipal Association has a seat. Also, the secretary has the ability to appoint additional members aside from the ones that are enumerated. I would really encourage, I got to talk to HLC about this, but I'd almost really be curious about having a municipal working group or something, right, where you would have, someone like an Andy or something, right, who's sitting with representatives from all the towns, really talking about like the technical, the technical side of this work. Yeah, so I think that's one kind of feedback mechanism. The second is going to be, there's going to be a regulatory process and there's going to be a public comment period and all that. But this was very much specifically designed, thanks to feedback from towns like Barnstable and other municipalities, as we were crafting the statutory language. We met extensively with municipal officials in all of our towns, including in Barnstable, to get feedback, to figure out what your concerns are, what are the issues and challenges you face. So I think those are sort of the two prongs around how to have feedback. And we, of course, are going to keep a pretty steady hand in this. The Senate president appointed me as a Senate's representative to the Seasonal Communities Advisory Council. So this is, look, I've been working on this really extensively. This is one of my babies. So I am very much going to keep a hand in implementation. And I think if there's issues and ideas, right, we want to hear them.
That's great. Well, we're
And
fortunate
just from a timing perspective, right, they'll issue draft regs sort of early winter. I'm hoping around December. There'll be like a 3-month public comment period process, hoping the regulations determining how a town like Barnstable would join a seasonal communities designation would be finished by early spring, so probably March or April.
Great.
Which I should say is a very speedy timeline
It is.
for state regulations for those of you who've done this work.
Certainly. All right. Do any other trust members have questions for Senator? Laura.
Hi, Senator. How are you?
Good.
Good. I just have one question because it's been asked of me, so I'm going to ask it of you because I
Sure.
don't know the answer. Barnstable is a gateway city.
Yep.
I didn't see anything in the legislation that would prevent them from being both a gateway city and a seasonal community. Is that correct?
That's correct. Nope. So Barnstable is both a gateway city, and our hope is that y'all will come into the seasonal communities designation. We created the seasonal communities designation essentially as a mirror of, or we look to the gateway city model as an example, right? The gateway city program acknowledges that, I know Barnstable's a town, but most of these are cities, right? Cities and large towns like Barnstable, New Bedford, Fall River, Leominster, Worcester, Springfield, across the state, right, have a unique set of challenges and need, tailored programs and resources that come from the state. So the seasonal communities is very much out of the same idea. My hope is that seasonal communities becomes a policy framework for us to address a whole host of challenges that our communities face, not just in housing. So really, this is modeled off of the gateway city model, but Barnstable can be both a gateway city and a seasonal community. It probably will. My hope is that it unlocks additional resources, and my expectation is that the town will fully be able to access both programs, and there won't be you won't be harmed by that, right?
Right. Yeah. The policies of both are different and necessary. So,
yeah, and we may have to make sure that we, if anything comes into conflict, we'll have to work to iron that out. I don't really foresee it being so, although something could emerge.
Okay. And if I can just
please
ask, just Barnstable has, just so you know, Barnstable has 28% seasonal. So in that case, it's a request from the town, as I read the legislation, right?
So what HLC will do is HLC is going to map out and basically invite additional communities to apply. We expect that, most all the communities on the Cape will qualify for this, right? Because it's not just the actual percentage of
right.
secondary homes. It's a number of other factors, and Barnstable should meet those factors. Right. Then there'll be an invitation for the town to join, and then you can take steps to join.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great.
Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning.
You are so welcome, Andy. I really appreciate the opportunity to brief folks, and I think continue to count on us as a resource as questions come up, as this is implemented. I expect you'll hear about listening sessions and the work of the advisory council and all that. So Really excited to partner on this most urgent issue, and I'm really proud to have been part of the team that brought this back to the Cape and Islands. This is very significant, meaningful policy, and I think is really going to help us address the most urgent short term issue that we face here. Right. This is what, when I talk to most anyone, right, employers, when I talk to people just trying to make a life here, the cost of housing is really top of mind for folks. So we should be proud that we're all working on this. And thank you for all of your service on the trust.
Great. Thanks again.
All right. Take care.
Sir.
Bye bye.
All right. We'll move on to the next item on today's agenda, which is transfer of general partner interest in the Village Green Apartments from Dakota Partners to Tangram. We have a request of the trust proposal. Jillian, who should I be turning the floor over to?
I believe Lewis Harrison, who is on the screen.
Right.
He is a general partner for a senior partner for Tangram, and I was hoping that he would be able to give you a little bit of intro as to who Tangram is and sort of what their vision was for where we're going with Village Green.
All right, great. Thank you for being with us today, sir.
No, thank you for having us. And this was like a perfect intro with the after the senator. It sounds actually like you guys are making real traction, uh, which is good to see. So this is not a terribly complex moment in as much as we're not specifically doing something new. Dakota, who was the original builder of the project, finds itself a bit capital constrained on some of its other projects in the Northeast. And so, for a whole host of reasons, they're selling a handful of general partnerships. This particular property is amongst them. Tangram, and my partner is on the screen as well with the cool background, Margaret Wagner, who's here in Boston. We've acquired, run, delivered quality, affordable housing across the country. A lot of stuff here in Massachusetts. There's a whole host of reasons why Massachusetts has actually been better than a bunch of the other states that we do business in. In the case of Village Green, it's a very well-run property. The vacancy is, sub 3%. It is, to the senator's point, it is needed housing, and our aspirations around it is that we keep it at or above the level, the town has become accustomed to. Management there is solid. The local property manager we like. Our global business around Village Green is, more of the same. The larger sort of aspirations of our firm is when we get involved in a town that if there's more to do, we will do it because it makes sense. The group of us, you have myself, Margaret Wagner, Chris Collins, who's once upon a time ran Boston Capital, and then a couple of folks from my former firm. Are these sort of principal, let's call us talent, but let's just say principals without throwing in the talent word there, who sort of do a lot of the stuff that Tangram does. And then from a business perspective, we're really focused on our asset management around sort of maintaining assets, properties at the level that folks are accustomed. And because of our reach, we've been pretty good at knowing sort of what's next in the sort of program world. So we're on a couple of our properties elsewhere in the country. We've gone in for various greenification grants and been able to get sort of meaningful federal dollars into some of our buildings. And that's, but I don't want to be boring, but like the reality is like this is mostly a boring transfer because you guys already did the hard thing, which is get it built and find land and do all the other stuff. Here, we are a new face. We'll be a new contact, for when things go wrong. Hopefully, should things go right, you can call us too. But that's, as much as anything, we want to establish rapport with you all and let you know that, we exist and we intend to do more of the same and honor the obligations of the last guys, and then some.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Do we have any questions from trustees this morning? Laura?
Mr. Chair, I realize that I have a conflict in that my agency also is looking at this. So even though I don't vote on it, I'm going to have to recuse myself from voting on this.
Okay, I appreciate that. And obviously, we only have 3 of our 4 present today, so any vote that would have been taken will not be. We need at least 3, so we'll wait till the next meeting on that. Jillian?
I just wanted to say that this property also has, it's a home consortium. It received money from the county, and therefore they also are reviewing it. I have already reached out to Renee Hammond at the county and will be guided somewhat, back and forth, any conversations questions, and I will certainly relay anything I hear from the county related to that.
Great. Any other? Counselor Starr?
Thank you for allowing me to ask one question. My question to Louis is are the property managers going to stay the same? Is that a
Yeah, in this very specifically in this instance, they're doing a good job. I mean, a lot of what the senator was talking about in this sort of seasonality, we do have moments when the vacancy will drop a little bit, but the existing property manager is or on site is Deb Moreau, and like she's doing well, so we see no reason to change that. If there's some other concern that you guys have run into, let us know, but we're not aware of anything, and yeah.
okay?
We
Thank you.
also deal with like seasonality also changes people's income, and we've also got moments when people don't income qualify, which is also a fun foible of this. But by and large, the average tenancy is over 5 years for the folks who are sort of fortunate enough to be in that type of housing, which is great.
Thank you.
Anything else on this matter? All right, thanks again for coming in and briefing us this morning. We really appreciate your time.
Okay. Thank you all. And it sounds like so next time it will be vote, because that's the other concern is we are trying to move through an approval process,
Yeah,
of which there's like a dozen people every time. So
yeah, our next meeting is on the 1st of November, so it's right around the corner. We should be able to facilitate a vote on that date. Does that work? Does that work for you? Yeah.
Well, I feel like if I say no, nobody cares. So yes.
No, we simply don't have the bodies, so
Yeah,
we can't take one today. If you were an extremist, there's a possibility we could call a special meeting specifically for this.
Okay.
Let's work through Jillian if that does become the case, but our intent was for November 1st meeting to move this.
Okay, I'll make a note, and if something comes up between now and then, yeah, Jillian's been fantastic, and we appreciate it. So thank you.
Great, thanks again.
All right, thanks all.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move along to item number 3 on today's agenda, the continued policy discussion for potential financing of the Finance Commonwealth Builder projects with deed restriction of less than perpetual duration. Attorney Galvin provided a nice letter of opinion. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read that. And Bob's here with us today. If you'd like to take the floor and kind of summarize your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Mr. Clyburn. So this was kind of an interesting thing. I wasn't real familiar with the Commonwealth Builder Program or how it had been utilized around the state. So it gave me a good opportunity to kind of look into some of the other projects that have been approved. And what I immediately saw when I was looking at approved Commonwealth Builder projects are that other gateway communities like Barnstable were financing these types of programs using community preservation funds. Not all of them, but some of them did. For example, there was one in Lowell and one in Springfield. I think I may have mentioned at the meeting where we discussed this preliminarily that I would speak to the Community Preservation Coalition. And after I read about the programs that were financed in other gateway communities, I did contact Stuart Saginaw and we discussed this issue because on its surface, if you look at the statutes and the Community Preservation Act itself, it does call for perpetual restrictions, and it would seem to me that looking at it very literally, that is forbidden. Stuart and I talked for probably an hour that day, about this, and he explained to me that the way the coalition is looking at this is that the Commonwealth Builder Program is just another tool in the affordable housing belt. It's a little differently. It's a little different, but it's a 15-year program. I could just go over it really quickly, but um, from the Commonwealth Builder Program guidelines, these projects are either fee simple single family home projects or single family condominiums. There's no apartments that are eligible. And if it's a condominium project, it has to be at least 15 unit project, and then 25% or 10 units have to be restricted with a 15-year restriction. And if it's a housing project, it's got to be a minimum of 7 units. The people that are eligible for this program are earning somewhere between 70 and 120% of the area median income and have to have less than $100,000 in assets. Only a first-time buyer is eligible to purchase units using Commonwealth Builder financing, and all of them have to have at least a 3% down payment in order to qualify for the program. Um, After discussing with Stuart, um, I concur that this is a tool that could be deemed supporting of community housing within the meaning of the act. Um, there's a workaround in place for there's a requirement of the Community Preservation Act under Section 12 that requires a um, real property interest that's acquired by any entity that's financing or benefiting by a restriction like this to have it be a perpetual restriction. And he believes that this is not offending to that program because the type of financing you would be providing here wouldn't necessarily involve a real property interest. It being less than 30 years. And I said, well, I'm not sure how it dovetails with our trust documents because I think our trust documents actually have a provision called a use restriction on it that specifically says perpetual. Um, but based upon his discussion with me, thinking of it, my review of those programs in the other state, elsewhere in the state, I do believe that this is a program that we could support, but I think it would require us to either waive the rule that we have in place, which requires a perpetual restriction, um, or um, or change the rule. I think a waiver might be more appropriate because I don't know how often you're going to see these Commonwealth Builder programs. Um, Trust regulations could be waived, um, but that's the only way you could do it. You'd still have to do something with your underlying rules and regulations in order to do it.
Great, thanks for that summary.
Okay.
Any trust members have questions for Attorney Galvin on this? Laura?
Um, it's it's my understanding that even if you could get you would not consider it a interest in real estate for contributing to the development, that the funds could not be used for acquisition of the land because that would be an interest in real estate.
I agree.
One. And number two, um, as you may know, Community Preservation Act doesn't have an enforcement arm to it. So communities can basically make up their own rules, no matter if a community does something that is contrary to the statute, the only recourse is a 10-person lawsuit, and that's been used twice. Um, so so kind of with Lowell and Springfield using it, um, only only kind of means that they took it upon themselves to ignore perpetual restriction, kind of knowing that there was an opposition to it. Um, that's my opinion on it. That's the only way that that you can DOR can make guidelines and and opinions, but they can't enforce anything. So that's my take on it. Also, after the 15 years, there's another 15 years where it's a shared equity. So it's kind of technically a 30-year restriction. They can't go to market they can sell it at market, but they have to share the equity after 15 years. So it's really a 15-year, I mean, a 15-year strict restriction, where they can only sell it to an eligible buyer. And then after that, it's a shared equity. My opinion is if we were to move forward with allowing this, that we should find a way to fund, have a restricted fund so that we could, at sale, purchase a unit and keep it affordable. 30 years goes by too fast. I've seen expiring uses, and we work so hard to get any units on to be affordable and to be affordable in perpetuity, that 15 years, 30 years goes by fast, but 15 years goes by obviously, even quicker. So that's my opinion on it. The other thing is if we thought the benefits of this program were something that we wanted to support, we could look at non-CPA funds. We have some funds that will be coming in, and either for a grant or to seed a repurchase fund.
Yeah, I agree with you, Laura. I think the program is certainly worthy of further discussion on both of those points. It would seem using non-CPC available funds would be the easier of the two, but not knowing, I mean, obviously we have a fairly limited amount of those now. We are projected to be getting some over the next, several years, but I don't think that we have enough. Our current balances wouldn't support this without some sort of waiver process going out the door. So I personally am supportive of looking a little more in depth of what that would look like. Any other discussion on this matter? Jake, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just have one sort of question for Attorney Galvin or to maybe to Laura too. I believe with the Commonwealth Builder Program, the units will not go on the SHI. So I think that would have to be amended on the trust, documents as well, or a waiver, or however you want to do it. Is that correct, Laura?
Agreed.
Well, anything that was 80%, they'd have to have a 30-year, you're right. They'd have to have a 30-year restriction for new construction.
Okay. And the way the restriction that Commonwealth Builder wants to put on them doesn't read to comply with
right
EOLHC's requirements.
That's correct.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Attorney Galvin, for that. Jillian, you'll keep this on the forefront of our agenda to continue discussions of as far as moving forward.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else on this matter? Okay, we will move along to item number 4, the 2023 report to Community Preservation Committee, authorized for the chair to sign and convey. Jillian's put together a nice draft. Hopefully you've all had time to review. I believe you've got some comments in, Jillian.
I did. Wendy, who is not here today, did give me some, just basically, I think she was concerned that some of the acronyms and abbreviations should be spelled out. So I had done that. And obviously the date will change. It is certainly something that the CPC has been waiting for, and I was hoping to move
Absolutely.
along.
We certainly need to move it forward. Since our chair isn't with us today, I don't want to speak for him, but I've reviewed it. I'm comfortable with it as is. Laura, Mark, have you both had the opportunity to review and anything further?
Yeah, I just a question, Jillian, is this really for fiscal year 24, or because it says at the top it's fiscal year 23?
You're right. It's the end of fiscal 23, start of 24. So
Thank you.
I will correct that. Thank you. That's a big one. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think what we'll do then is, barring anything further, if Wendy's commented, if the three of us are all in agreement, I'll give Jillian the green light to make those modifications and send them directly to Mr. Ellis for signature and move this over to CPC for presentation. Do we have any concerns with that approach? All right.
Thank you,
Moving right
Jillian.
along.
Nice job.
Yeah,
Thank you.
great. Thank you, Jillian.
And thank you for that. And surely Mark, I'm sure, will make any amendments or suggestions if he is not happy with that before he signs it. So thank you.
Yep. Item number 5, trust, finances, and budgeting. Jillian, Mark Milne.
I think I may defer to Mark. I had included just the email that he provided. Mark, do you want me to read anything, or did you want to just comment on the balance numbers that
I'll just update the committee briefly on what we have available. CPC funds, we have just over $2.2 million available. Remaining funds after setting aside all the commitments that we've made to date that are included in Jillian's report that she just completed. In addition to that, we have around $89,000 of affordable housing trust fund money. It's non-CPC related, and about $99,000 of economic development funds. We just received our first payment from WS Development for the landing in Hyannis, $75,000. We will receive that amount of money for the next 10 years, I believe. And then upon the anniversary of the ground lease, the new ground lease, I believe that's not until 2027, they will make a one-time payment to the trust of $1,750,000. But we did just receive our first $75,000 this week in accordance with that new ground lease out there. So we'll be adding that to that $89,000 balance of affordable housing trust fund money.
That's great. It's good to see that money finally flowing in. I feel like that deal was done a while ago. It was pre-COVID. So that's great to start recognizing those funds. Do we have any questions for Mark or Jillian on the finance portion? All right. Moving right along.
Andy, just a question, or just sort of setting the table. If we wanted to go back to the Community Preservation Committee for an allocation, just please advise me and we'll start work on that. Thank you.
Certainly. Thanks, Jillian. Anything else on item number 5? All right, item number 6, application presentation. $500,000 of development request from Joshua and Tammy Barrows for 242 Barnstable Road, Hyannis. It's a redevelopment of the vacant Spartan Cleaner site to create up to 56 units of high efficiency community housing with an affordable housing component. Do we have Mr. Cleary with us? I do not.
I am here. I am here.
Okay. Hi, Steve.
How are you guys?
Good. The floor is yours.
I've been working 2 meetings this morning, so I just had to jump over here.
I have a feeling.
I do want to say at the outset that in my experience in the real estate business in the last 45 years, I've never worked with a more responsive town ever. Jillian has been unbelievable, to the tune of, in the middle of her arrangements for her niece's wedding, she is doing spreadsheets and emails back and forth to me. I usually work on Sundays, sending out things for the beginning of the week. I sent something out on Sunday, and Jillian immediately responded. I find that amazing. Corey has been awesome through the process with the town, but I really just wanted to make that point that you have a great staff on board. And we really appreciate it. A little background before I'm going to ask Josh to get on and explain a little bit, but a little background. We, as
Steve,
yes,
I apologize for interrupting you.
no problem.
Very unfortunate, but we're going to have to end the meeting. one of our members has to leave.
Okay, not a problem at all. That is
It's
not a problem.
We're not going to have a quorum.
Yes.
So I apologize. This item on through adjournment is going to have to, we're going to have to move everything to the meeting on the 10th. So.
We have absolutely no issue with that.
Okay.
Yeah,
First of November. I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah, we're in no rush. Yeah, no
great.
rush.
I really appreciate your time. We'll get you back here. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting will be 1 November.
Great, guys.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. All those in favor of adjourning: Mark Milne,
Yes.
Laura Schufelt,
Yes.
Andy Clyburn, yes. Thanks, everyone.